Welcome, this is Jigsaw Actual bringing you a demonstration video showing when and why to use specific routes and instruments during your flight. We're here on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 and I made this video out of the need for the many frustrated people on Reddit like me who are trying to figure this out. This is not for real life pilots, it's only for flight sim gameplay. Let's get into a 172 Skyhawk in free mode, and I selected a random place in Oklahoma here where there's two nearby airports, Stigler Regional and Salisal Municipal, and they have the same runway 17 for takeoff and landing, and you'll see why. Now you can fly VFR over this lake and easily find your destination airport, but what if your EFB suddenly broke or blue screened on you and you're stuck looking for the airport without it? Here you can open your EFB and see your full route, waypoints, altitude, heading, and the traffic pattern for the arrival airport. When arriving at your final destination, you might often have to cross over the airport runway to enter the traffic pattern, and there's reasons for this, like if you're flying in zero visibility. This is where you will have to initiate a teardrop return to the airport after passing over the runway to enter the traffic pattern downwind at a 45-degree angle. You can see only part of the full traffic pattern is displayed here. Both airports are left-hand traffic, meaning you turn only left turns inside the traffic pattern. Notice how exiting the pattern to the south pulls the pilot away from the other traffic towards your final destination. Here you can see your EFB data, your altitude, your heading, your waypoints, all of the individual waypoint data and what altitude to be at, and it tells you the azimuth, your heading, so you can look at that. We see the route EFB route guideline here, and this red line denotes your magenta navigation line in your G1000 that utilizes GPS. You can see the EFB route is different here. This is not a mistake. These are two different systems, even though you can technically make them both look the same. Now let's change the weather. Let's say you ended up in zero visibility weather and you're used to chasing that EFB route line. Whether you have an IFR rating or not, this is very important general information. When to use the GPS versus the EFB? The answer really is just whatever suits you, but timing can matter. If flying in sudden bad weather like this and you also lose your EFB, you have to know how to navigate to an airport safely using your available instruments. So how do you find your airport? This is where the differences matter. Otherwise, you'll end up overshooting your airport and ending up like this guy looking for your runway, but it's behind you. Let's hop in the pilot's seat now and see this in flight. All right, on the left, we see our EFB route, and you see we are departing the runway to the south. On the right, we have our MFD displaying our nav GPS magenta line generated by the G1000. Notice our magenta route begins at the location our plane is sitting on the airport because it's GPS. Let's take off now and get some altitude. Watch the EFB as we follow the route. Also notice the HSI and our GPS magenta CDI. I'm doing multiple things here, so I'm not performing very smooth flight. I'm going to activate the autopilot and use heading mode and vertical speed mode. This is helpful when first taking off to gather your bearings while autopilot keeps the wings level for you. I use a rotary knob to steer the heading bug, and that really helps a lot. Alright, as I get back on track here, we see that we are to the right of our navigation line. We need to fly towards that line. Notice we are currently following our EFB route line. This is a good time to transition to following our GPS route using navigation mode. We need to turn left towards what's called the CDI, course deviation indicator, which moves left to right to show the aircraft's position relative to the selected course. It's standard procedure to approach the magenta line at about 35 degrees, but this is not set in stone. It's just so nav mode flies a smooth rate of turn to get on track when approaching the line if you already have nav mode activated. Our goal here is to center the CDI line up with the magenta course line. Alright, I fast forwarded into zero visibility, and as you can see, my speed is dropping rapidly, unbeknownst to me, which is going to set off a stall, even though we look like we're not moving at all. And now imagine we don't have our EFB. We have to rely on GPS, which is triangulated by several satellites. The G1000 nav mode is a very simple system. It shoots a line from the runway of airport A to the runway of airport B, or waypoints also if you give it. Its goal is simply to give you get you flying over top of an airport you selected. No turns or waypoints are shown here for this flight. You can see on the EFB that our GPS route will cross over our EFB route. This is displayed by the red X. I'll speed up the flight here. When we enter the point where the routes cross over each other, this is a great time to transition from our GPS route to follow our EFB route, as this route will show us our traffic pattern that the GPS route doesn't. They won't always cross over though. And I forgot to transfer here until after making this video. There's pattern entry rules as defined by the FAA and or the local airport. The FAA states that if the ATC is not involved, the standard guidance for non-towered airports applies. Pilots should cross over the airport at least 500 feet above the traffic pattern altitude to ensure separation from other traffic in the pattern. The FAA's advisory recommends crossing midfield, so middle of the runway, at least 500 feet above the established pattern altitude before descending to pattern altitude and entering the 45-degree entry. Here you can see me crossing the midfield, perpendicular to the runway. There might be an aircraft already flying on the downwind, so we need to cross over the downwind at 500 feet before per the FAA's rules. The reason for crossing over the runway via GPS or EFB is in case we need to locate the runway in zero visibility, among other reasons. It flies you directly over the runway. It's also to clear the local traffic, local pattern traffic safely and consistently at an appropriate altitude until we are ready to enter the traffic pattern. The teardrop turnaround here allows us to drop altitude and speed before entering the pattern. We now enter the teardrop pattern to downwind entry at 45 degrees. Here I'm pulling back the throttle to reduce speed and lowering altitude from 3,000 feet to 1,000 feet. I'm a bit high. Notice the system said 500 for our altitude, but our altitude ribbon shows 1,000 feet, and our density altitude is correct. This is another video for another day. I still have autopilot on and it's being difficult in the wind. Not a good way to fly patterns when distracted, so I'll turn it off in a second. For now, I'm using heading mode to steer. We enter the downwind. I'll turn off the autopilot, which should have been done before the airport flyover, and we announce midway downwind at 45-degree entry to the local traffic. If it's a non-towered airport, then you would inform local traffic of your intentions and location. So anybody flying in the area will know exactly where you are, and they'll fall into the pattern too without running into you. I'm going to turn off autopilot here. And when you're coming into the midway point of the traffic pattern, so midfield of the downwind, it's good to mention that so that they know exactly where you're at, so they know you're midway down and you're going to be turning on left base soon. As we turn left base, we announce base entry. If you take a close look at the airspeed tape on the G1000, it's color-coded. White is for flaps range, green is for normal operating range, yellow is for caution range, and red is the never exceed this speed range, or VNE. and I'm activating my flaps late because you can see that I am not below a safe airspeed to use flaps yet. I have to bleed off some airspeed first, and in this case the 172 white flaps range is from 80 knots to 40 knots. I'm very distracted trying to film this, and with the wind it caught me off guard and I turned too early. I'm a terrible pilot. But here I set my flaps under 80 knots and line up with the PAPI lights and the runway center line. And the rest is just focusing on the horizon and landing. This might be my best landing yet, so not terrible at all. Have a great flight. Jigsaw out.